This is Seemorerocks and Kevin Hester, both speaking from down under and giving a regular report. Kevin, I think you have something to say, that you've got a project that involves speaking to the youth.
I do. Last week I was privileged to do an interview on the Lifeboat Hour, Michael C. Rupert's old radio station that is run now by Carolyn Baker. And I mentioned that part of my mission as I go forward now is that I want to speak truth to youth, because I believe that the youth of the world are being lied to about the severity of this predicament, this climate change predicament that we're all confronted with. Their lives are going to be changed incredibly, much more so than any previous generation. And I believe it is our duty as elders, and sadly this is what you become as you get older. You either take up that role or you renounce it. But that's how I see it now, is that we've got to warn these young people about the catastrophic circumstances that are coming down on them. And that I believe that they should be preparing for it in the sense that following the old business as usual approach to life and getting a career and thinking ahead and looking to your retirement and all of those things, I believe that is complete bullshit. There isn't going to be that kind of life. It's been stolen from the youth of today by my generation and the previous generations. And the very least that we can do is put our hand up, accept the mea culpa, and warn them about the trouble that's coming.
Well, that reminds me of a conversation I had a few years ago. It was actually about peak oil, not about climate change, but it could just as equally apply with this Waller from the Green Party, who said he claimed to have sort of scientific research to prove his point, that a message had to be 80% positive and 20% negative, otherwise people wouldn't listen to it. So let's not speak the truth, eh?
Yeah, look, I'm really attached to a whole lot of the people in the Green Party of Aotearoa, and they are really good people, most of them. But I think that at the moment, the party in New Zealand is putting the party before it's putting the people.
Yeah.
And this story that we have, the story that you and I and Guy McPherson and people who believe that we pushed the biosphere over the cliff, our story is catastrophic. And very few people want to hear it. But, if you're in a picture theatre and it's on fire, do you yell fire and warn people so they can get out the exits or at least try? Yeah. Or do you keep quiet because you don't want to disturb the movie? My opinion is that we're at the point that we should all be yelling fire. And if people don't like it, then bad luck. But an organisation like the Green Party of Aotearoa that purports to support ecology and the people the people of New Zealand, I think they have a moral obligation to speak up and tell the truth.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid I think that they've been neglecting that message for some time, but that's just my point of view. And I think possibly there's this leadership change might show that there's been a generational shift as well, from the old original Green Party founders.
Yeah, well, sadly, I think that the neoliberal disease that's washing across the planet has washed into the Green Party as well. And I've seen Green parties around the world all struggle to make the transition from being environmentalists to want to be political parties in power, and that often means compromise. Yeah. And if it's going to mean compromise, where you're compromising your complete philosophical beliefs, I don't think it's worth it.
No.
And I also believe that the whole paradigm has shifted where in the old days we thought we could reform capitalism. We thought we could change the system from within. That's never worked for us, and time is very short. I subscribe to Chris Hedges, the wonderful American journalist, his position where the only thing that we can do now is rip down the structures.
Yeah.
And quoting Dajamal, brace for impact.
Well, in the past there was always an alternative, whether you believed it or not. Whether it was socialism or or whatever, but there's because of the what we've done to this planet and to the depletion of resources. There is no alternative. It's just how the reducing size of the cake is going to be distributed, isn't it?
Absolutely, and people are reluctant to accept that we are where we are. They're all living in the past,
Yeah.
thinking, let's try and mitigate, let's try and reform. I want to mitigate, I want to reform, but I'm a bloody realist.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of my life racing yachts and sailing yachts around the planet, and I always go back to the yacht analogy. My job as a skipper on a yacht is to keep the boat safe and keep all the crew safe.
Yeah, yeah.
But there comes a point in time when the boat is holding going down that the skipper has to abandon ship.
Yeah.
He has to accept that the vessel is going down and is lost, and the only thing now that he can do is try and preserve the crew as best as possible. We need to be getting into life rafts, and we need to be preparing for the catastrophic consequences that are bearing down on us like a freight train. But because our skippers are not calling man overboard and not calling that we're sinking, that those opportunities are being missed. And
I mean, really, you could say that there's no leadership at all. I mean, the people who are so-called in charge are just empty spaces. It takes someone like the skipper on board a yacht or a vessel to say man overboard. Someone who's going to take responsibility and speak the truth about the way things are.
This is where I believe they're putting the party before the people. Yeah. This is an unelectable position to be taking. If you tell people that we have to completely shut down industrial civilization and buy a few days, weeks, months, or maybe a few years even, you can't sell that to the electorate. So unfortunately, these really moral people, really wonderful people, are prepared to not look the truth in the eye, and they're prepared to sort of carry on with business as usual. And business as usual is not going to get us anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I was just reminded of something that Martin Bradbury said the other day, because the support for John Key and the Tories has gone up, and he said, the people they're like sharks. They they love the blood.
There's going to be plenty of it, and this is the reason why us citizen journalists have to speak out and speak the truth and speak truth to youth. They're not getting it. They're not getting it from the people I would call the enemy, but they're not even getting it from their own team. They're being bullshitted, and they're being led astray. And I don't want to be a part of that. No matter how ostracized that makes me, no matter how isolated that makes me, I do not care any longer. I'm going to speak up and say it how it is. And those relationships that I have with those people are all called into question now because of the fact that I have this really philosophical difference of opinion with them. And which is extraordinary. These people I was very close to.
Yeah. So, and meanwhile, the climate in the news just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, it used to be every year, every month, but now it's every day,
Well, there was a little bit of a shift last night. I noticed on One Network News here in New Zealand, where they covered the forest fires that are burning outrageously in California at the moment, and they mentioned climate change.
Really?
Well, I think if you did a sophisticated search of the mainstream media in New Zealand and see how many times climate change those words get used, it's very, very seldom. So I was totally impressed that they covered that last night.
Well, I mean, it's only ever mentioned in terms of something that's going to happen over the next century, It might provide some inconvenience to the ski fields. That's usually the way in which it's expressed. So that is something new.
Or in terms of financial loss.
Yeah.
It's really sickening. Everything is mentioned in terms of, look, it's cost this much. That is so tragic. When you see these massive forest fires burning, millions and millions of acres burning in Alaska, Siberia, millions in California as well, tens of millions in the first two places I mentioned. What people don't realize is that almost all the vertebrates and most of the species that cohabitate in those forests are being incinerated.
That's right.
And we don't know how many species that will be only found in those particular areas are becoming extinct as a result of these fires. And no one's drawing the connection between these fires are raging around the planet. Well, we're only 1 degree C above baseline. Even the IPCC expectation of trying to keep our global temperature increase to 2 would be catastrophically worse than what we're seeing now. And there's no way it will be kept to 2. We're punching through 4, en route to 6 and beyond. Even Shell Petroleum and the International Energy Authority agree that we are heading for 6 degrees C. If they're going to admit it in their internal communications, why the hell aren't we speaking about it in our parliaments and on our streets?
And just wait for when we have our first sort of when the Arctic ice completely breaks down and we get what we could call a blue ocean event, and then year by year there's less and less ice for less and less of the year. What then? It's
how I see it is it looks to me like we're an organism that has a very, very, very bad and obvious skin cancer.
Yeah.
Anyone who's looking can see it, and everyone who is sitting in the seats of power, who should be dealing with this situation, are completely obsessed with covering up that cancer. And we all know if you have some kind of illness and you don't go and get it treated, it gets worse. So as a result, anyone who's being a part of this conspiracy to keep the youth of our world in the dark are contributing to it, and they're making it worse. And that's where my respect issue for these people has been really called into question.
And I just came across an article last night, which it was about Canada, and that the Stephen Harper government has told their climate scientists not to make any statements about the state of Arctic ice. It's forbidden them.
Yes, well, just recently I was at a play in Auckland about climate change and the dichotomy between climate scientists and their partners about, how they're working on all this catastrophic news during the day and how they integrate that into their lives. And I spoke to Bunny McDermott, who's the CEO of Greenpeace New Zealand, and Rod Oram, who's a leading New Zealand journalist. And I mentioned to them about Michael E. Mann changing his position on the exponential nature of our catastrophe. And Bunny McDermott's face completely dropped. And I had a word with Rod Oram after, and he asked me to send all the information that I had. And I've done that. So what I'd like now is to see Greenpeace come out and confront this issue and start talking about it in terms of the exponential function. Because anyone who knows the math knows that things are really catastrophic when that happens. Yeah. And I'm sincerely hoping that Rod Oram will do an article and use some of the links and information that I sent him and bring the subject up, because these people have this moral duty. Once they can't say that they didn't know about it.
Well, I had this experience with the Radio New Zealand science journalist, and I sent her lots of stuff about methane and about the whole thing, so she can't claim that she didn't know anything about it. And then she said, wait for the IPCC report to come out, we'll be covering it. And then she wrote this hack piece when it did, including this section about the opportunities of climate change. And she knew everything, and she never questioned it. She never told me, stop sending me this stuff. It's not true. She accepted it and acknowledged it. And
it's a complete and utter dereliction of duty.
Yeah, she's putting her own job and her own salary in front of everything.
Yeah, that's why I admire Guy McPherson and Daj Jamal so much, Yes. They put their necks on the chopping block and they stick their head above the parapet. And for any of us who are involved in talking about near-term human extinction and talking about the 6th grade extinction, not just including all these other millions of species that are going extinct, but having our name on it at all, we're vilified in public. It's just incredible, the cognitive dissonance about how people react to us talking about the situation being so bad. It just goes to show it, and it explains why humans are in such have brought the planet into such a dire predicament. It's because when the shit hits the fan and the bad news really starts manifesting, the age-old reaction is to shoot the messenger.
Yeah, that's right. To blame somebody.
Yeah. If you don't like the message, shoot the messenger and hope it'll go away. Well, that's how you guarantee that the cancer will get worse and worse and will consume the patient even sooner. We could buy time. The whole purpose of me spending my whole freaking life doing this is that I want to be able to look young people in the eye and say, well, my generation fucked it up, but I am trying to raise the alarm about it, and I'll go down doing that until I take my last breath.
Yeah. Oh, well, perhaps we'd better just leave it on that note. We're all agreed on it, and we're probably equally sort of frustrated about it. So we'll leave it there, eh, Kevin?
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Lovely talking to you, and thank you so much for your wonderful blog. I've learned so much from all the different information on it, and I often go back and I check through the archives, so it's all there for anyone who ever wants it. Seemorerocks.
Thank you. Well, this is Seemorerocks and Kevin reporting from Down Under.